Last time, we explored North America in the roaring 1920s. Now we turn the clock back another 100 years. Let's drift back 2 centuries, to 1826, to a young, wild, and mostly empty-seeming frontier nation. There are no cars, no skyscrapers, no electricity, and no railroads. None of it has been invented yet. The United States is barely 50 years old, and beyond its edge lies a vast, half-mapped wilderness. It is a world of log cabins, riverboats, fur trappers, and endless open land stretching to the west. This is North America, 200 years ago. Let's take a look around. In 1826, the United States is a brand new country, not yet 2 full generations old. It has only 24 states, and almost all of them cling to the eastern side of the continent. The great frontier lies along the Mississippi River, and beyond it stretches a land few Americans have ever seen. The population is small, only around 11 million people, scattered thinly across farms and small towns. In a strange twist of fate, this very year marks 50 years since the nation declared its independence. And on that 50th 4th of July, 2 of its founding fathers and former presidents die, within hours of each other. It feels, to many, like an omen, as if one chapter of the young country's story has quietly closed. Ahead lies a restless age of expansion, as a small eastern nation begins to dream of reaching the far Pacific. For the pioneer pushing west, home is a cabin of rough logs, built by hand from the surrounding forest. It is a single room, with a dirt or plank floor, an open stone hearth, and a roof of split shingles. There is no glass in many windows, no running water, and no light but the fire and the tallow candle. The family makes almost everything themselves: their clothes, their soap, their candles, their tools, their food. Cloth is spun and woven at home, and a long hunting rifle hangs above the door, ready for game or danger. Life is hard, isolated, and self-reliant, ruled by the seasons, the weather, and the nearest neighbors miles away. It is a world where a family must be its own farm, its own workshop, and very nearly its own town. Food comes straight from the land, corn above all, ground into meal, along with pork from the family hogs. The forest and river provide the rest: deer, turkey, fish, and wild berries hunted and gathered in season. There is no way to keep food cold, so meat is salted, smoked, and dried to last the long winter. The garden gives beans, squash, and potatoes, and what cannot be eaten fresh is pickled or stored in the cellar. To drink, there is cider, and often homemade whiskey, for clean water cannot always be trusted. Sugar is a luxury. Sweetness comes from honey, or from the sap boiled down out of the maple trees. It is a plain and hearty table, and every bit of it is the fruit of the family's own labor. Now, how do you cross a continent with no roads to speak of, and no railroad yet built anywhere? You travel by water. The great rivers are the highways of this age, above all the mighty Mississippi. Flatboats and keelboats drift downstream loaded with goods, and a brand new wonder churns against the current: the steamboat. Belching smoke and turning great paddle wheels, steamboats carry people and cargo up the rivers as never before. And just last year, a marvel of engineering opened to the north: the Erie Canal. This great ditch, dug by hand across the state of New York, links the Atlantic to the Great Lakes at last. Mule teams tow the canal boats along, and the cost of moving goods west suddenly collapses. On land, you still travel by horse, by wagon, or by bone-rattling stagecoach over rough and muddy tracks. Far beyond the frontier, out in the wild Rocky Mountains, roams one of the great figures of this age, the trapper. These mountain men live alone in the wilderness for months, hunting beaver in the icy streams. For a beaver pelt is worth a small fortune, because in the cities of Europe and America, everyone wants a beaver hat. Once a year, the trappers gather at a great meeting called the Rendezvous to trade their furs and resupply. It is a rough, free, and dangerous life, lived far from any law but the mountain's own. To the north, in British Canada, the same trade is run by great companies like the Hudson's Bay. Their canoes and trading posts stretch across a vast northern wilderness of forest, lake, and river. The fur trade is drawing the first outsiders deep into the west, mapping trails that others will soon follow. But this land is not empty, and it never was. It is the home of hundreds of native nations. West of the Mississippi, indigenous peoples still hold almost the entire continent, as they have for thousands of years. On the Great Plains roam immense herds of bison, numbering in the tens of millions, the heart of plains life. In the east and south live long-established nations, some with their own towns, farms, written languages, and constitutions. For now, much of the West is still theirs. But the young nation to the east is hungry for land. In just a few years, a cruel policy of removal will begin, forcing many eastern nations from their homelands. It is one of the darkest chapters in the story of this continent, and its shadow is already gathering. In 1826, though, the vast heart of the West still belongs to its first peoples. And here is something that surprises many. Much of what we now call the American West is not American at all. It is Mexico, a nation that won its own independence from Spain just 5 years ago, in 1821. Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and all of California lie within its vast northern territory. Out in California, life centers on Spanish missions and sprawling cattle ranches called ranchos. Monks, soldiers, ranchers, and native peoples share a sun-baked land far from any American town. It is a Spanish-speaking Catholic world of adobe and cattle, utterly different from the log cabins to the east. The map of North America in 1826 looks nothing like the one we know today. Back east, the cities are small and crowded ports clustered along the Atlantic coast. New York, Philadelphia, and Boston are the giants, though tiny beside the great cities of Europe. Their streets are lit by oil lamps, paved with cobblestones, and busy with horses, carts, and sailors. For America is a seafaring nation, and its tall wooden ships trade across the whole wide world. And from New England sails one of the strangest and boldest trades of all, whaling. Whaling ships vanish for years at a time, chasing the great whales across distant oceans for their precious oil. That oil lights the lamps of the nation, and the whaling ports are among the richest towns in the land. But over this young and hopeful country falls its deepest and most terrible shadow: slavery. Across the whole of the South, millions of enslaved black people are forced to labor without freedom or pay. They work the great plantations of cotton and tobacco that make the region's wealth under brutal bondage. The invention of the cotton gin has made cotton king and tightened the chains rather than loosening them. Only 6 years ago, a fragile bargain, the Missouri Compromise, drew a line between slave states and free. It is a nation founded on liberty, yet built in large part on the enslavement of others, and the two cannot hold. This deep and bitter division is already pulling, quietly, toward a war still decades away. In everyday life, faith runs deep, and waves of fervent religious revival sweep across the frontier. Preachers ride from settlement to settlement, and great open-air meetings draw crowds for days at a time. Medicine, though, is still crude and often dangerous. Doctors still bleed their patients and know nothing of germs. Epidemics of fever sweep through towns without warning, and many children never live to grow up. News travels only as fast as a horse or a boat, for the telegraph is still nearly 20 years away. It is an age of the common man, too, as more and more ordinary white men win the right to vote. The gentleman wears a tall beaver hat and a long coat. The pioneer, buckskin and a cap of coonskin fur. So North America in 1826 is a land of astonishing contrasts all at once. A young republic on the coast, a fur trapper's wilderness in the mountains, native nations across the plains, and Mexico in the south. It is poised on the edge of a great expansion that will, within a lifetime, carry it all the way to the Pacific. But for now, it is still young, still wild, and still mostly a country of forests, rivers, and open sky. As night falls on the frontier cabin, the fire burns low, and the family gathers close in its flickering light. Outside, the wilderness is vast and dark, alive with the sounds of a continent still mostly untamed, and under that same enormous sky, people laugh and worry and dream and hope exactly as we do. The very same hearts as ours, beating 200 years ago on a wild and open land. That was North America 2 centuries back. Next time, we'll turn the clock back once more, 300 years to 1726, to a land of small colonies clinging to the coast and a wilderness beyond. But that's a journey for another time. If you're enjoying these trips through time, please subscribe and come along, and every like, comment, and share truly helps this channel grow. Thanks for traveling back with me, traveler. Rest easy, and we'll rewind again soon.